Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talkie to Animation. And today we are talking about one classic in the world of animation and then one that would classify in our obscure animation uh, heading title. We're talking about a new movie and a classic movie. We're talking about Ghost in the Shell and Mars Express. And it's going to be real fun. I'm excited. And I am film critic Grace Wagner. Stanford's here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. This is gonna be so fun to talk about these just,
Yeah.
interesting, unique films,
Yeah.
that
I
yeah.
was so glad that Mars Express came here. I was not expecting it to get released in Salt Lake, but it got a pretty decent rollout. So I was grateful to G Kids for doing that.
Yeah, same. And I wouldn't have known about it unless if you hadn't told me. So thank
Yeah.
you for giving me the heads up because I was very happy to see Marley Express on the big screen.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really cool. And I'm just glad when these more obscure, smaller films get at least some kind of exposure that and people get a chance. It was only for, a week or two, but still it's at least something. And if people are interested, there's like tons of behind the scenes information on Mars Express. They have like a whole YouTube channel. They made basically like a whole documentary about the making of the movie, and so it's really fun that way to you get to see kind of what their inspirations were and everything. And but I thought it would be fun since I think the biggest criticism of Mars Express will be, oh, it's just a copy of Ghost in the Shell. I thought it would be fun to kind of give some thoughts on Ghost in the Shell and talk about that, and then talk about Mars Express and how we feel about the two. And Ghost in the Shell is a film that came out in 1995, and it was extremely influential on so many films,
Oh
especially The
yeah.
Matrix.
The Matrix. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I just was I hadn't seen Ghost in the Shell for a while, so I rewatched it in preparation for this. And yeah, that's what kept coming to my mind
yeah,
was the Matrix.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've even said the Wachowskis have said that that was their one of their biggest inspirations.
Yeah.
And I would say everybody involved, but the names are too hard. I'm sorry,
I
but they are
know
incredible.
the names are hard.
They're incredible. And so you had seen this previous to this watch.
Yeah. I've only seen it on and I've never seen it on the big screen. I've only seen it,
Yeah, I've never seen it on the big
on a
screen.
TV screen. But
I know they did it at Maven a bit ago, but I didn't get a chance to see it. So I hope they
yeah,
do it again because I would like to see it.
I hope that they bring it back too. I mean, it really is uh an anime classic, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
wouldn't you think? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's just
for
so
sure.
well respected and, as you said,
Yeah.
so influential.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, and like the little summary is a cyborg policewoman and her partner hunt a mysterious and powerful hacker called the Puppet Master. And and the main plot is basically a cyborg that has a human brain, and that there's this idea of this like ghosting that you take out like the soul and heart of the so it just leaves the shell, right? The ghost in the shell. And I'm sure that the diehard Ghost in the Shell people are going to eviscerate me for that description, but but that's the basic idea. And they're trying to there's this hacker that's going in and creating all these ghosts in the shells, and so they call the Puppet Master. And so this Kusanagi is trying to find out more about the Puppet Master. And so that's kind of the story that you get. I don't know. What do you think about this movie? What's your
Well,
overall thoughts?
I think it's very interesting. I mean, it's a dystopian future movie. Frankly, this rewatch in a lot of ways was reminding me of Blade Runner too.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if they were influenced, if these filmmakers were influenced by Blade Runner at all. But uh, I think it's an interesting, of course, an interesting concept with all the dystopian future stuff, but also I think having a kind of a crime procedural film in animation is cool, and and
Hmm.
uh, and so I just liked that this kind of crime genre, that uses animation as the medium to tell the story
Yeah.
was interesting. And the animation,
Yeah.
is such a not is so great in this
It
film too.
it's so beautiful and the music is so
Yeah,
great
the
and it creates
music is
such good
terrific.
atmosphere. Basically, like there's all of these agents and this hacker is coming and infiltrating the agents and they get ghost hacked and the goal is they think the goal is to assassinate the VIP uh like prime they think that it's going to be that this puppet masters is going to assassinate the like it was kind of like prime minister kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and there's
exactly.
some good lines. I think a good sci-fi should have like sort of be trying to say something, and certainly this one is, you know.
Yep.
And there's always more than one way to view a situation. And the big moment is when it says what's true for the group is true for the individual, which I think is interesting
Yeah.
because I don't know if that's something interesting to think about. If it's true for the like because you think about like socialist ideas and communism and things like that. The idea of what's good for the group is good for the individual.
Yeah.
Well, that's only if the group is actually allowed to make the decisions of what's good for them.
Hmm.
And that's where things get problematic is because then leaders then come and impose their will on the group and then people don't have any individuality to oppose the leader and that's where it gets messy.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
That's a really,
So
really excellent point. And I think too, this film is so focused on uh the technology, of this, of the
yeah,
time period. And that's what's interesting about it is like how do you as a person or an individual or whatever uh deal with this, with what's going on with the technology. Uh and I think that's a really interesting
yeah.
theme
Well, that's what I
with
liked
it
that
too.
it keeps kind of giving you more and more information. Like that's what I'm saying about the pacing. I just feel like we're constantly kind of getting clues and we're learning more
Yeah, you're
about
like
what
piecing
section
it
6 is and
together. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's again what makes it's so interesting with using animation as the medium to tell this
yeah.
style of story.
Mm-hmm. And it's they over specialize and you breed in weakness. It's a slow death for a agent, which I think is interesting too. So like not only do you have to be part of the group, but the group has to all have sameness. In
Hmm.
philosophy, they talk about the other versus the same,
Yeah,
and so definitely in this world, the the idea of these uh, of these life forms, these droids, is that they all need to be the same and any individuality over specialized is going to be a problem.
yeah,
So it's It's interesting. And of course, the more she starts to realize this, the more the major starts to realize this, the more that she becomes kind of more in line with and more sympathetic to the puppet master, which then
Yeah.
causes the conflict
Yes.
with the ministry, who then becomes a cat and mouse kind of chase towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
puppet master says that he was created by Section 6. While wandering various networks, he became sentient and began to contemplate his existence, deciding that the essence of life is reproduction and mortality. He wants to exist within a physical brain that will eventually die. So he becomes more sentient the more he starts to contemplate um, his own thoughts and ideas, and this over specialization, like they said. And the essence of life is reproduction and mortality. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are heavy
They
and
really are.
heady topics,
Yeah.
that are mixed in, which I think also makes good sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
That's what you wanted sci-fi. You wanted to have something to
yeah.
say. You
Yeah.
wanted to mean something. And he there wakes up in the safe house with a new cyborg body, and then she tells Batu that the entity within her is neither Kusanagi nor the puppet master, but a combination of both. She promises Batu they will meet again, leaves the house, and wonders where to go next. So it becomes this merging of the puppet master and
Yeah.
Kusangani, and that's kind of how the story ends. But with this new entity kind of being created. I I enjoyed watching this again. I think it gets big points for me because I do think the pacing is pretty good for this kind of sci-fi, and it's so beautiful. The animation's so good. I really like the music. So for what it's trying to do, I think it's very successful.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm glad you bring up again the pacing, because it's what, 82,
82
85
minutes.
minutes. Yeah. And which is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it is able to effectively tell the story. And yeah, you don't feel like it's too long or too
Mm-hmm.
short. I think, yeah,
And
good.
it's really interesting if you think about it from 1995. It would just because the creator, Mamoru Oshii, he wanted to talk about the power of computers and his own personal experience with computers. And he says, I thought this theme would be more effectively conveyed through animation. And I, it's just so interesting because you think like, wow, if he felt that way in 1995, and I know there's been many sequels and other things in Ghost of the Shell, but if he felt that way in 1995, can you imagine?
Seriously. No,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, and you bring up an interesting point too. So lots of sequels. Well, and also based on a really popular manga, right? This is
Yeah, yeah,
the right way to say that. But
yeah.
so this world really continues. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen any of the sequel films. Have you?
I have not. I've not seen any of the sequel films. I did see the live action remake.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, which I didn't mind as much as some. I mean, it was silly. It was silly to cast Scarlett Johansson
yeah,
as the major, but in on the other hand, she's a cyborg. She's not, so she wouldn't necessarily need to be Japanese because she's a
yeah.
cyborg. She's not
I
real. But like, it was still stupid. But I didn't hate it like other
I didn't
people.
hate it. I didn't hate it either. I guess I saw it as well. I didn't love it,
Yeah.
but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't hate it either.
I
So
mean, it hits most of the beats
yeah,
of
yeah,
this movie, to be honest.
yeah. I just know that the casting was so
Mhm.
controversial,
Yeah,
and um, yeah,
yeah. I mean that it was stupid, and why they decided to to make the movie in the first place, I will never understand.
Yeah, that's what I kind of
Who
felt like
was
the
it
whole
for?
project was misguided. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Like they keep talking about doing a live action Akira, and I'm just like, what? Nobody wants that. Like fans of Akira don't want that. And
No,
like regular moviegoers don't want that. Like
no,
it just
it's a bad
yeah,
choice.
terrible, terrible. But and it was very influential, like you said, on The Matrix, but then also James Cameron and Avatar and other things like that. You know, he was very influenced by it as well, and certainly something like Alita that would be
Yeah,
very influenced by Ghost in the Shell. There's tons.
there's some. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor of this episode of the podcast. New from Harpath Road Press, we have Lindsay Gibson's new perfect beach read called Fly Away Summer. Chef Lana Kelly hopes she can acquire the inn her family lost, but when it goes up for sale, the inn is snapped up by Hunter Graham of Graham Property Development in New York City, who plans to transform it into an event venue. Lana isn't so thrilled about her new neighbor, but could this be a case of enemies turned to lovers? Pick up Fly Away Summer wherever you purchase books or use the affiliate link below. Find out more about Lindsay and all the terrific new books from Harpath Road at harpathroad.com. That's harpathroad.com.
Let's talk about Mars Express. So this is a movie from this year, and I guess how do you feel about movies where does something cross the line for you about something that is too derivative or just paying homage? Like, where do you find that line?
You know, that's a good question. I got to tell you, I mean, this is just me, and maybe I'm being dumb, Rachel. So you have to, help me. But I thought, frankly, I did not think Mars Express was particularly derivative of Ghost and Shell
Michelle.
because, I mean, sure, set in a few, kind of a dystopian future.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a police, procedural.
Mm-hmm.
We got robots, we got
Yeah.
cyborg
Droids.
things, but the story's quite different.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I could be wrong. So I
Yeah.
clearly I feel like Mars Express was influenced by it, but I didn't feel like it was, again, like a remake or overly derivative personally. But what did you think? I mean, because it makes sense that we're, I think, talking
Yeah.
about both films together. But
yeah, I don't think it was too derivative. Because I do think it's sort of different enough. It has more of a sense of humor. It has the characters are quite different than in Ghost in the Shell. Yes, they're both police procedurals about what it means to be a sentient life form. They're both obviously sci-fi. They're both about droids. There's a broader conspiracy kind of going on that they're looking into in both cases. But I think that there's enough. I mean, I think about this all the time with rom-coms because obviously rom-coms follow like a particular formula. I mean, even we talk about, oh, this one's enemies to lovers, this one's friends to lovers, this one's, and I love it. I love the tropes. I love this is so great. I love this one. And that so every genre has those tropes. And I think when it becomes a problem, at least for me, is when there isn't enough to set it aside and make it unique. And I know a lot of people felt that way about the creator. I haven't heard as much of that talk about Mars Express. But even with the creator, I felt like there was enough heart, enough soul that for me, the derivativeness wasn't that much of a barrier, but I know it was
for me, but it was for, I know it was
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to think of something that for me was just like, oh my gosh, I've seen this So many. I mean, even last weekend I saw Garfield and it was fine, but it was just like I've seen this movie so many times.
Mhm.
And so maybe that would be one where it was
Yeah.
just kind of like, okay, we're hitting all the notes. I might as well just watch the Paw Patrol movie. Might as well just watch, like, and so you're not bringing enough kind of new and fresh
Mhm.
to the experience. That
I
Yeah.
think that's a really good way to say it, Rach. I also felt too, given that Mars Express is uh, a European film,
Yeah,
I
that's
felt like
true. That's a good
that
point.
made it, that was a big differentiator for me.
Hmm.
That because I thought it had a real European feel to
Yeah.
it. And I was just, I mean, I'm thinking that it's European, and I can't necessarily articulate that, clearly, other
Yeah.
than it just seemed European, just
Right. Yeah.
uh,
No, it's true. It's true. And it, yeah, that's a good point. Like one definitely Ghost in the Shell definitely feels like an anime.
yes, no
And then
question.
this feels like European animation. It really does.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that was another thing for me that, made me think that it was not like a
Hmm.
necessary. I mean, and they could have just remade it in a European style, of course, but really felt that it
Yeah.
made it unique.
Well, the little summary for this in 2022. And in 2200, private detective Aileen Ruby and her android partner Carlos Rivera are hired by a wealthy businessman to track down a notorious hacker. On Mars, they descend deep into the underbelly of the planet's capital city, where they uncover a darker story of brain farms, corruption, and a missing girl who holds a secret about the robots that threatens to change the face of the universe. And I also think like that Aileen is a very different character than the Major.
Oh, that's again another
Yeah.
thing that's just like she couldn't be more different, really,
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
lot of ways, other than like they're both cops,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But that's
And
again,
you get to know Carlos in this.
yes,
So, and he has a whole different narrative. And his is somewhat similar to what's his name in Blade Runner.
yeah,
But but still, because you're never really sure like how sentient is he, what's going on? Like it's sort of you go back and forth on it. But I think that does make a difference. There's so many creative aspects to this movie. I mean, just little things. I feel like they thought of everything, which I really appreciate.
yeah,
I I love the fact that she starts out Aileen. She's sober at the beginning, and everything knows that she's sober, and so even the alcohol will have like sobriety locks on it that she
yeah.
has to, just stuff like that. I thought that was really creative.
I did too. Because again, that's again often a bit of a trope, right? That the
Yeah,
cop is dealing with some kind of substance abuse or something, and kind of got these demons.
yeah.
Uh,
Because in Ghost in the Shell, there's not really like a case that they're looking into. It's more of like the overall situation
there's right. There's like this whole
with the
puppet
puppet
master
master.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just
And in this
so
case,
pervasive.
yeah, in this case, she's specifically looking into June Chow, what happened, uh, where is she? And
It's a
so
more of a it seems more of a mystery
it
in a
is.
way.
It's more of a
You feel
mystery.
that
There's
way too,
clues.
yeah.
Hmm. And there's this, so like previous to this case, she had sent this character they call the emancipator to jail. And and so that person is kind of out for revenge, and like the warrant for her arrest all of a sudden disappeared, and uh so she's is upset with Aileen. And then we have Carlos. He was human. He died, and then he in this insurrection, and then he came back, and his head is kind of floating
Yeah, and it's
above.
like a projection, kind of, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so kind of got, yeah, so kind of, yeah. I
Hmm.
think Carlos is, I think he's my favorite character in the
Yeah.
film. for
Well,
sure.
it brings like a ton of heart, which sometimes can be missing for me in sci-fi. That because he sees his whole life, he sees his wife, he sees his daughter, and they don't want to. His ex-wife, especially his ex-wife's new husband, doesn't want anything to do with him and wants him to go away. And so there's all of that going on too.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
One thing too, Rachel wanted to talk to you about was the setting of Mars Express, because I feel like that also is a real differentiator between and Ghost in the Shell, because they travel to Mars, and in a way they're like in this kind of Truman Show thing, that this is like this manufactured. I mean, not that they're getting filmed, but it's just like this manufactured environment. Even the sky, is is TV screens basically, right? And I thought that was an interesting thing that made it feel like it was its own, again, like its own story. Versus copying or being derivative.
I mean, there's really quite a few differences. Like it's just that they're both sci-fi. They both are about droids, and both
cops.
But I agree. And so basically, all of a sudden, the droids start getting new coding, and they don't even recognize that they are getting the new coding unless you're somebody like Carlos, who has the human side to him. And so their previous programming is leaving, and basically then they become under control from this external source that she starts to look into and try to figure out, this hacker. Like it's interesting too, because while the androids are becoming more and more sentient, they're also becoming more and more servitude.
They're like exactly like they're more under the control, right? Of because
they go to, at one point they go to this like harem kind of situation, and it's all droids there. And so Aileen asks if the business has any human prostitutes, and they say, sorry, nothing but synthetics, I'm afraid. The robot bartender tells her, but he assures her they all consider themselves human, which is interesting.
I guess a similarity, but also you could say this about a lot of different sci-fi stuff, is the whole connection between humans and machines, and again, technology or droids or robots or whatever you want to call them. And this just brings up, I think, just another interesting representation, of that. And just another way to talk about that kind of thing, because I feel like it's been timely for years, but just the whole thing about, well, now like with AI and all these things everybody's talking about these days, I think it's on people's minds. Like, what's the human and the humanity part, and then what's the technology part, and how do those really, work together?
And so she wants to keep trying to, the more she dives into it, the more she wants to basically like free all these droids from this control, because it keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and until the end, just like everybody is coming out of their houses, basically coming up to the to the main spaceship, and they're and it's only Aileen and Carl, so they're sitting there like, what? Stop! Don't do this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's about what point do we kind of become human? What point are we? And it's one of the big questions of sci-fi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, this professor who's the he says that that he likes droids because he can just turn them off whenever they annoy him. And of course his version of the perfect companion is the shiny gold unicorn
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
that it just shows how like shallow and in need of like control he is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought those were really interesting and good choices, for that character, just
Mm-hmm.
it's how to show us what that character is all about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it had just such a cool visual aesthetic. I liked the music. I liked the themes that it was pondering. I feel like it's one that I could watch a bunch more times and get something different out of it every time, and kind of see things different each time. And the whole idea of independent thought, free will, I think is always something kind of interesting to discuss.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I thought the relationships were very interesting in this
Yeah.
film. I really cared about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And um not saying that I didn't in Ghost in the Shell, but it's just different.
Yeah.
It feels very different. This feels almost just more
Yeah, I think
in some
that
ways it's
Ghost in the
almost like a
Shell,
character study.
I think it's more about like we were talking about with the group versus the individual kind of
Yes.
dynamics, as opposed to like really about the characters.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of asking more like sociological and political kind of questions than
Mhm.
this is more asking those like free will, philosophical, psychological kind of questions.
Yeah. And just really kind of in a lot of ways, just a really classic uh mystery,
Yeah, that's true.
we talked about too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more like clues and more things going on. You
Mhm.
even have like a murder at the very beginning
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of sets everything off. And so, yeah, I think people that if you like sci-fi, certainly if you like Ghost in the Shell, I do think you would like this Mars
I do
Express.
too. And as you mentioned, really cool animation because
Yeah.
it has a hand-drawn look, and I'm sure that they used a
Mhm.
ton of computers with it, but it's got a very distinctive look. But I thought it was beautiful. That was, I think, another reason why I really enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
particularly seeing it on the big screen is just how beautifully it's animated.
Yeah, and it premiered at Cannes last year and then at Annecy. And I saw the animation as film. They were kind of let me watch it virtual last year, and there was one that I did think was kind of funny that I saw it in the French with the subs, but then when I watched it in this dub, I felt like they boosted up the profanity a lot.
Yeah, because I only saw this dub that was loaded with profanity.
I mean, I just because when you're reading, it's not quite the
Yeah,
same.
it's different,
but I feel like they really wanted this to be like adult. This is gritty, and so we're gonna put in
right.
like tons of efforts.
Yes, exactly. It's just
So
some gritty R-rated,
yeah,
police movie.
yeah. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's going to be
Absolutely.
out on pretty soon. I think it's gonna. I think I saw an ad on that's going to be on Blu-ray and on digital pretty soon. So I think people should keep an eye out for
Keep
it.
an
I think
eye
you'll
out, right?
like it.
And
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell, you had mentioned, I think, that it was on Tubi. I watched it on Prime Video.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you've got Prime Video,
What's on there?
it's available. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched it on Tubi, and Yeah, it's all over the place. So it's easy to watch Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just kind of rite of passage for any animation fan. You got to watch Ghost in the Shell.
Yes. Amen to that.
Yeah. So let us know what you think. I'm sure that like I said, I know there are hardcore Ghost in the Shell fans that know that movie back, forward, inside out, every detail. So let us know what you love about it. And I've seen it twice and I was really impressed twice. But I would love to hear your deep dives into what you think it's trying to say. And if you've seen Mars Express, I would love to hear your thoughts about that. And also, like, I would love to hear in the comments what you think makes something derivative and not derivative.
Yeah.
What makes it work? Because I think that's an interesting thing.
I do too. That's a really good
Yeah.
question. I mean, really interested to hear what your great followers have to say.
Yeah. In fact, I almost forgot, but I did ask my Twitter what they thought of Ghost in the Shell. Let me what do you think of Ghost in the Shell? And we have it's beautiful. CC Takakato says the animation still holds up, and I like the themes and characters, and it's an impressive work that I think it is important for animation fans to watch. But I actually prefer the Ghost in the Shell anime TV series more. Sim again says I love it. It's one of my favorite influential anime films ever. Ruby Tuesday says up there with Akira. Broderick Schwinghammer says, I need to watch it again. For me, it kind of falls victim to that trap of being so influential on everything that came after it that watching it now, my takeaway is just that is pretty cool and that's it, which I think is fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's fair. Jim says it's been a bit since I saw it, but it was the first foreign film I saw in theaters back in the 90s. And the first anime I saw in theaters. So I by default like it for these reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't rewatched it in over a decade. So watch it. It's really good. Tim Lee says one of the best animated films I've ever seen. There's a ton of comments here. Spyheart says shoulder to shoulder with Akira for the best anime film of all time. I do like Akira a lot better. It's just more like visceral and exciting.
Yeah, that was the first word that came to mind too. Akira, it's so visceral.
Yeah. It's just more my jam. These slow contemplative sci-fi is just not my favorite. I can appreciate it, but I just prefer the energy of Akira way more.
Akira is just knock your socks off.
So it's so good.
Yeah.
Gavin Owen says I've only seen the one animated film, and it's one of the best manga films behind Akira, I think. And LeVar Anthony says this may sound weird, but I've always thought it was good, but never really got into it. It's just one of those animes that are much too dry for what it's going for. And then a couple last ones. Our friend the Film Beast says great film. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, a lot of different thoughts going on with Ghost in the Shell. And it is. I agree. Great film. Great film. And I think Mars Express is too. And I think that people should. I mean, this has been not the best year of films for me. And this would be pretty high up there. And I hope it gets remembered. Come award season. I hope they do a push or something for it because I think it deserves to be in that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrific film.
Yeah, beautiful animation, interesting story, good characters, and it is trying to say something about free will and identity and sentiency, and also like I think it's also trying to say a little bit about like the reality of getting hacked, and that I don't know if you feel like when you get your identity, even if it's just like a little thing, like your credit card gets taken or whatever, it always feels so violating to me.
The most horrible feeling.
It's awful. And now, they immediately deal with it right away, the credit card companies and stuff, but it just feels like icky that somebody is using you.
Horrible.
And so I think it kind of taps into that feeling too, of just like, we could have our whole identity just like stolen. And so there we go. That is Mars Express and Ghost in the Shell. Again, let us know what you think about all of these. And Sanford, where can people find you?
I've got a movie podcast that you can find at moviespastandpresent.com. And follow me on Instagram. My handle is at moviespap, as in
Great.
past and present.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. And also check out all of our previous episodes of Obscure Animation. We've covered some really fun things. I realized we hadn't actually done one Obscure Animation since November. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We hadn't done one since Tokyo Godfathers. And,
oh, wow.
yeah, because we
are overdue.
Yeah, that's just wild. But we have some really good episodes over the years on there. So check it out. And we also have at the merch store, you get hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. And the Patreon group is a lot of fun. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.